Good morning, everyone. I'm Brent Cromer, and this is the FSA Podcast, where we teach online health coaches how to sell at a higher rate and scale their businesses with more profit. Now, today, the reason you guys want to stick around is I am joined by Christy Campbell, the owner of Fit Me Nutrition and Coaching, and the co-founder of the Coaching Biz Manager. She's also a Navy veteran, a mom of three, and an author of 2 fitness certifications. Christy, you stay pretty busy, don't you?
I do stay busy. Yeah. And I have 2 crazy dogs too.
What kind of dogs?
One is a Mastiff mutt that I rescued about 2 years ago. He just came
Large.
into the frame on cue. And the other is a Bernedoodle.
All right. So yeah, you have a pretty packed schedule. Is that right?
I do. Yeah.
All right. Guys, what I want to do, and this is going to be something where we kind of shift the podcast at some point, but I want to start interviewing more fitness coaches like Christy here, who's juggling about 8 different things, and she's still able to have a profitable and successful fitness business. So we're going to dive into that, what system she uses, how she's able to balance all of these different things. And then we're going to talk about some of the common pitfalls a lot of coaches will kind of endure or come across as they're scaling their business. And then more importantly, how to avoid that. That's the purpose of this podcast, right? To teach you guys how to avoid some of the mistakes that we made, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So let's throw it way back then, Christy. When did you get started in online fitness coaching?
So I started online about 5 years ago, but I started
Oh.
in person 10 years ago. And so I started coaching like many others because a coach impacted their life in some way. And that's how it was for me. I had 10 knee surgeries during my time in the Navy. 10.
Did I hear that right? Okay.
Yeah. So I was a super athletic kid and never really struggled with my weight. Went into the Navy, had an ACL reconstruction that they botched. And so one
Wow.
ACL reconstruction turned into 4. So I've had 4 ACL reconstructions on my left
Oh my
knee
God.
and 10 total knee surgeries. And so
Insane.
you fast forward a couple years, I'd had my first 2 kids, all of those surgeries, and I found myself 40 to 50 pounds overweight. My baby weight was now my body weight. It'd been like 2 years, it's stuck. And all I knew was dieting. And that's what I'd grown up with. And I wasn't able to do the sports and the things that I loved because I thought that was off the table for me. And I just thought, well, this is what mom life is. This is what happens to you when you grow up. You get overweight. And
Normality,
I thought
right?
that was like my birthright, almost like I was born with a bad metabolism or something. And I got a bad deal because of my knee. And I sort of was like, well, what can I do? So I just started doing diets, really, because that's what I had learned growing up.
What do you mean when you say diet? Just so I understand.
Well, it's funny because in other categories of my life, I feel like I had a decent head on my shoulders, right? I'd come out of the Navy. I mean, I was a mom. I'd gone to school. I had a degree, all of those things. But like when it came to nutrition and exercise, I was still totally willing to be like, yeah, let me buy Brazilian butt lift off of an infomercial and these shakes. And that seems right, And I was totally like, okay, well, let's try that. Or let's try Slim Fast. Or let's try Weight Watchers. It was like I thought again that there was something wrong with me, that there was maybe a disconnect with my motivation or my discipline or my metabolism. And so I was looking for fixes. And so I really was just one of those people that were willing to try those diets because I didn't want to be overweight anymore.
Sure.
I bought an elliptical machine and put it in my room because I was like, this is what you do, right? Cardio. And it wasn't until, so it was my ex-husband that, he was my husband at the time. He went on deployment for a year and I met a coach. So my kids were little, not even 2, not even 4. And I met a coach at a gym. I was forcing myself to go because I was like, I'm going to lose weight. And I met this coach and he invited me to his boot camp class in the park. And he changed my life. He literally just taught me the basics around nutrition. He taught me to work out hard. He didn't baby me because of my knee. He gave me back the piece that was missing. And he made me feel like me again. And so he changed my life. And so I was working in a nonprofit at the time and I was like, nope, this is what I'm going to do. So I got certified as a trainer and I spent a number of years coaching in person as a trainer in the park. I would teach classes in the park and I worked in CrossFit. I ran a CrossFit gym for a while and a weightlifting program. And then I transitioned online about 5 years ago into the nutrition space. And so that was when, what's that?
What prompted that transition?
Well, It was almost by necessity. So again, my ex was still active duty. I was out of the Navy at the time, but we had to move every couple of years. So the
Hmm.
first business that I built was actually here in Washington. It was this in-person boot camp class in the park.
Hmm.
And then we got transferred to Maryland. So I had to leave the whole business behind and start
Wow.
over.
Big
And
move.
so then when I got to Maryland, I actually started working for a gym. So I ended up running a gym as the head coach of a large CrossFit gym. And so I
Hmm.
worked for someone else for a couple of years, learned what that felt like.
Yeah.
Also got more reps. And then again, we got transferred. So I had to leave that entire situation and move. We moved back out to Washington. And so it was around that time that I'd seen enough that I was like, I wanted to work with more people than just the ones I can see in person.
Hmm.
And I'm also going to need something that travels better. So I don't have
Yeah.
to start over every couple of years. And so that's why I switched to online.
Yeah. Makes perfect sense. So
Mhm.
5 years ago, you were a little ahead of the curve, actually, like 2018. Is that right?
Yep, 2018.
Okay. So making that transition, what did you find the most difficult from being so hands-on for, it sounds like, a number of years and then going to the online space?
Well, getting one-on-one clients first as a nutrition coach came pretty straightforward because it was for me, I didn't
Mhm.
overcomplicate it, to be honest. I feel really fortunate that I didn't grow up in the online space now because it's so much more confusing, I think, because you're
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I have to do this and this and this." At all I knew was like get people results. That was the name of the
Right,
game.
right.
Get clients, get them results and then tell people about it. And then show up
Mhm.
online so that people knew that I had a service to offer. That was my
Sure.
business strategy.
That's not a bad one. I mean, if we take the Hormozy approach and just simplify it down to like its most basic form, I mean, that's fitness coaching, right?
That's what it
Get
was. It
people
was
really
like
good results and show people that you have a thing that that you offer.
that's all I did. And
Yeah.
so that translated really well at first because it was
Mhm.
something that I knew. What was hard was I was like, okay, well now I want to touch more people. So I built a program and wanted
Mhm.
to sell it. And so then I was like stepping into this space of, okay, well, now I need to like have it be on a website and I need to be able to
Mhm.
sell something that's not just like a service exchange of coaching. And I I should need to tell people about it, like what the benefits
Mhm.
are of buying this program. And the first one I launched, nobody bought. Literally
Mhm.
no one. I worked on it for months and months and I was like, this is going to be amazing. And what happened was everybody around me was like, yay, you, like you did it, but nobody bought it.
Mm.
You know,
So
they were like,
let's dissect that. Why do you feel like things didn't pan out for that launch? Like, what do you feel like could have gone better, or where do you feel like you missed the mark?
well, the nice thing is it really was what you're supposed to do the first time, which is just do it. Just put it out there, right? Like if
Sure.
you're afraid that no one's going to buy it and that's the worst thing that happens, that's the worst thing that happens. Like
Easy,
but
right?
it got built. But what I did is I built education rather
Mhm.
than an outcome. So I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, if I can teach people all of these things, that's what they'll want." But that's not what they want. And I didn't know it at the time. What they wanted was an outcome. So
Mm.
I didn't
There
know
it is.
how to talk about that.
Mhm.
And I didn't know how to market that. And so that's why people were excited for me because they were like, "Oh, you did your first launch. Like, congratulations. Like, you're so
Mm.
amazing." But they
But you
weren't
didn't
thinking
buy.
about it in their mind. They weren't like, "Oh, I need to buy that."
Sure.
Um, and so I reworked it. I took the same content and just reworked it into an outcome and turned it into a program and launched it again a few months later and did
Nice.
get people into it, 20 to 30 people, which was a lot,
Nice.
for me then.
This was
And
a free challenge, or this was like a beta launch, like join my program for X amount?
yeah, it was like my first step into a group program. So this was like an 8-week group coaching
I
program. I
see.
think I sold it for like $250 or something like that. And it
Mhm.
was very hands-on. It wasn't a do it yourself, but it was a group model.
Sure.
And that was my attempt at like, well, how can I touch more people, right? Than just
Mhm.
like one-on-one. I had reached
Sure.
capacity. But that's where I started to learn these like bigger lessons around, one is you have to be able to explain things in a way that people understand the
Yep.
outcome for them. It's about them, it's not about you. I a quote wasted my first like $3,000 or $4,000 on a marketing package that I probably didn't need. It was basically
Yeah.
somebody putting this on like some templates for me and charging me $4,000 for it.
It's wild.
And again, that was a lot as a baby coach. That was a big investment. And I also learned my first lessons around hustle
Mm.
because so that launch that I told you about when I reworked it, I had a goal, and I think I had a goal of 30, right, to be in the
Mhm.
program. And the program was supposed to start Monday. It was Friday. And I think I was at 19. And I was like, cool, I got 19. Like, that's way better
Yeah.
than 0, you know? And
Sure.
I remember talking to my business coach at the time. He's a friend and has been a friend for a long time. He was my nutrition coach, became my business coach. And I was like, he's like, how's the promo going? How's the launch? I was like, well, I got 19. That's great. And he was like,
Mhm.
well, what was your goal? And I was like, 30. And he's like, well, when does it close? And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Sunday night. He's like, what are you talking to me for? He's like,
I like that mentality.
go find your other 11 people. And I was
Yeah.
like, and it just didn't even dawn on me, at that was such a good
Mhm.
lesson. And so here's what I did. And I've told people this before. I said, okay, I'm going to take 11 and I'm going to multiply it by 10, right? Or even 20. So I made a list, I think of 100, 200 people that
Mhm.
I knew that I was somehow connected to, reached out to in the past, something, right?
Mhm.
Might want this. And I started DMing them individually. And
Nice.
it was all like, hey, Jenna, I know it's been a minute. I thought of you. I made this new program. I remember
Yep.
when you said this. I thought it might be right up your alley. And I DM'd
Personalized for each person.
yes, personalized for each person. So I sent
Beautiful.
out
Bingo.
I sent out these messages, and I sent out probably 60 on Friday night. And
Mhm.
I woke up Saturday morning feeling like death, like not sick,
Mhm.
but I was like, nobody likes me. I'm salesy.
Mm.
I had that like dump of like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to do the thing. I'm going
Just
to
like
hustle.
dopamine
Yes.
drought. Yeah.
And then drought. And then I was like, okay, nobody likes me. They're all going to think I'm so salesy and nobody's going to buy this. And then I really don't know why I kept going, but I just kept going. And
Yeah.
so then I just messaged all of those people. And of course I hit my 11, right? Because
Mhm.
people take a minute to respond back.
They do.
And I kind of had this sort of like, well, if I hit 10, maybe one will take it. And that was like
Yeah.
the game plan. That was all I knew.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And it was such a good lesson because I also got to ride the emotional wave of that feeling of
Exactly.
like launching, not getting into like the wave of thank you so much for this amazing thing. You're not
Mhm.
going to get that feedback hit probably,
Mhm.
unless you're a superstar and you've done this a bunch of times, and you're going to
Exactly.
have the dump, and then you're just going to keep hustling. And then the people who it's for are going to come around and they're going to
Mhm.
sign up if you do the work. If I had just sent out another blast email Saturday morning, I probably would have got like 1 or 2 more people, not
Exactly.
11.
So much to take away from there. One, the personalized outreach. I think that's huge. We do it at C4F. We teach our students to do it as well. It's like you're going to get. I mean, not suggesting that you shouldn't reach out to more people, right? But like of that 200, you would have had to reach out to 1,000 to probably get the same response if it was a templated email, right? But
Mhm.
you were able to bring in, 10 people out of 100 because it was so specific. Hey, just launched this thing. Thought of you based on XYZ context that I had previously. Like people are going to respond to that a lot more often than they are with just like a general branded email that looks totally formatted, right?
Mhm.
So that's one big takeaway too is the emotional roller coaster that a lot of coaches feel in sales. First off, if we had an audience here, I would say raise your hand if you've had a failed launch. I'd raise both my hands. Okay,
Yeah. Mhm.
we've had some eggs that we've laid as far as launches go. Obviously, you mentioned you have. I'm sure everybody has, right? But just like fitness and everything else, if you just chalk it up as nobody likes me, nobody wants my service, I suck, it ends right there, and you end on a
Mhm.
bad note, and then you go off and you pick up something else. You try it out, you set it down when it doesn't work, and then so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
That's a cycle that you don't want to be in.
And now the emotional up and down is still there, by the way. I think I
Oh, for
think
sure.
sometimes coaches think, okay, well, once you see that once, it doesn't happen again. Absolutely not. Like there is a grind mode of launching where you have to get hyped up for it. All right, I'm going to be on sales calls, or I'm going to be doing outreach. I'm going to
Mhm.
be in this mode for a couple of days or even a week, where you're going into the groove. The first couple always feel weird. It's like you got to rip the band-aid
Mhm.
off a little bit, and then
Yep.
you're going to have a dump. You
Yep.
absolutely will have like some sort of adrenaline dump in that process. And it might not be till after it's over. You might be done and be like, why did I do this? Like
Yep.
business is terrible, you know?
And I think just going into it with the expectation, like that's what I expect that there's going to be problems. Okay. And that's my good friend. He's like a serial entrepreneur. He buys all of our real estate. He manages like our whole portfolio with that. But like he said something, he noticed how stressed I was. This is a couple of years ago. He's like, dude, just expect that shit is going to go wrong. Just
Mhm.
go into everything with the mentality that I'm going to break it and then I'm going to fix it.
Yeah.
And ever since then, I've just kind of kept that mentality. And like you said, it's not like a cycle that just ends. You don't just do one launch or offer one service or make one sales pitch or put out one marketing post and you learn from it and then crush it from there. Okay. You're going to fail literally so much more often than you succeed in a
Mhm.
business, right?
I know. Yeah.
It's a bitch. I know. Okay. But it's like having that mentality like, hey, I'm going to break shit and then I'm going to fix it. And having that expectation, I think those dumps don't go quite as far down.
Yeah, I think one thing that's hard for online coaching business owners is to we are so much like our clients that we don't even realize it.
Oh yeah.
Like it's obvious for us if you've been exercising for a while, if you've been doing nutrition for a while, to know that you're going to have a shitty workout day. Like
Mhm.
you're not going to stop going to the gym because of that, or maybe like again if you're in sort of a more performance sport, a day that you just can't lift, which you're
Mhm.
accustomed to, and you know how to ride that out. And you're
Mhm.
going to keep showing up because if you know how this works, you know, if you keep showing up and you follow the program, you're going to get better and so on. Or you're going to see the gains that you're looking for. The same again, if you have a good head on your shoulders around nutrition, you're going to have a bad day and you're going to keep
Mhm.
going. But when it comes to business, it's like we forget that rule. And so
Mhm.
we're like, well, nobody wanted it. So I guess
Yep.
I'm done. Or like, this
Yeah.
isn't working for me. Like, so I guess I should start over. And I'm like, you're literally diet hopping right now. You see
Mhm.
what you're doing, right? Like you're looking
Yep.
for the quick fix and it didn't work. And so you're hopping to the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. And you're not.
That's why I like what you did. You went back to it. You didn't go and say, F that routine, F that coach, F that marketing. Like you didn't just scrap it all. You said, well, hold on. I felt like I was close, right? Let's go back. Let's repurpose some things. Let's take a different angle. You said you were more results focused the next time as opposed to like it's all me, me, me. Like I'm launching, look at me, and everybody's cheering you on. But it sounds like maybe you shifted more towards what do they want, right?
Yeah, and I think at first it was the right. I knew the material that I wanted to teach. And again,
Hmm.
this is where I think coaches have the right idea is like, well, here's a
Hmm.
great resource library. Well, guess what? The internet's a great resource library.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is a great resource library. You may have your own flavor of a great resource library, but it's really the application of that that is the value. And
Hmm.
so that's the change that I made. The material was the same. It's just then I sold not the material, but the application of it.
There it is.
And that's why it was different. And honestly, I'm still iterating on that in some way now. The program
Hmm.
that I'm launching in January is an iteration of that original one.
Hmm. So it's good that you just keep going back though. And it's like me with our course, right? Like we do so much with like the one-to-one coaching, but the course, I built it. It was like a set it and forget it thing for like the first
Mhm,
several months. And I was like, well, wait a minute. And I started picking back through and I was like, cobweb, outdated, spelling error. What was I doing there? And I
mhm.
just rebuilt the entire thing. And like, that's your business, right?
Yeah.
Your business is, the application or the service that you're providing. If you're not constantly going back and just combing through and making sure that everything's a little bit better I would do this on a monthly basis. I
Mhm.
would go through whether it's your DMing, your sales process, your coaching, your onboarding, your orientation, your Loom check-in feedback. If there's anything that you're doing on a consistent basis, there's a good chance that you can also make it better. So it's like once a month, you should really just comb through and just focus on one aspect that you can improve. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. It's less overwhelming. It's way
It
less
is.
sexy than,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm gonna overhaul everything."
Yeah.
But that's a much more sustainable and, results-oriented approach because, again,
Hmm.
it doesn't work unless you're already putting it out there and doing it consistently, right? So it's
Exactly.
like, if you are, then if you do make an improvement every month, it is gonna add up.
Yeah.
Um
And it feels good. It
Mhm,
feels so good to I don't know. I like cleaning the house, right? It's like
mhm,
cleaning your house. It's like you finish and you're like, all right. Like I didn't
mhm.
realize how dirty everything was till you empty the vacuum and you're like, damn, that felt good. Right. Maybe I'm a
Yeah.
weirdo. But
No, you're not weird. And honestly, I like even micro apply it because my house is always a mess with my 3 kids and my 2
sure.
dogs. And sometimes I walk around and I'll pick up one shoe and I'll be like,
Mhm.
well, 1% better than it
Yeah,
was.
there it is. That's the mentality. Yeah, I dig that a lot. And I think back to like the cycle. I think a lot of people really struggle because it happens in coaching too, where if you only focus on one thing, that's all you really see. It's like the red car theory. You buy a red car,
Mhm,
all you see is red cars. Like these things come in waves where you're going to feel like as a business owner, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you've never felt this way, right? But you'll go through spurts where clients are crushing it. And then you'll go through spurts where like a few clients cancel. Maybe you got a bad review and a chargeback. You're like, what the hell? It's the
mhm,
same exact program that Sally, Lucy, and Rob absolutely loved. And now I've got these three people that are hating it. It's like you're gonna deal with like that same cycle of emotions over and over and over. And I think the most important thing that you can do as a business owner is just to look at it from like an outside lens, not from like the emotional perspective, but from like just an observer. Take like the observation standpoint. It's like, what don't they like? Is there an actual problem there? And if there is, how can I actually improve that? How can I get their feedback?
mhm.
Right. And I think a lot of people just look at it through like more of an emotional lens. They're like, nobody likes me. My program stinks. Nobody wants to buy from me. And it's not really the case. And if it is the case, it's still going to be improved if you take that objective
Mhm.
standpoint and just kind of observe what you can fix.
Yeah, and even that, I definitely think that that's a real emotional experience. And again, to relate it to our clients, it's very similar to when they're looking at progress on the scale or progress in terms of like what they're trying to create if they're trying to get strength goals. If you're looking at it on a day to day, it can be really even triggering. Like, oh, I did it, I'm crushing
Mhm.
it, and then the other you're up 3 pounds, and you're like, what the hell? Like, it's the
Yeah.
same program. I'm doing everything right.
Mhm.
And you can't read too much into the day to day, but what you should look at is the trend. And so
Exactly.
you might have one client who just bails and they're like, you guys suck. You're the worst. And you're like, am I the worst? And you're
Yeah.
like, no, overall things are not trending in that direction. But if
Yeah.
you start to see repeat things, then you really need to pay attention and ask for the
Absolutely.
feedback. And it's okay to ask for the feedback even in the one-offs because there's probably something to learn there, even from
Mhm.
someone who is determined to fail or determined to hate you, right? Like
Mhm.
you could still learn something from that. Maybe it's just being able to flag those people sooner, not take them as a client, right? Like just you can
Yep.
start to learn that. But if you start to see a trend, then that's when you do need to figure out what needs to change here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you mentioned there getting feedback, even from someone who you might not want to ask for feedback. I
Mhm.
just had this conversation with a client. She had a client join 2 weeks in. She said, "This is not what I wanted. This is not what I thought. I hate it. I don't like my assistant coach. Get me out of here. By the way, I don't want to pay the cancellation fee." So my client came to me and she's like, "Well, what the hell do I do? Like, this is crazy." She's like, "Do I just let her out of the cancellation policy or do I try to like hold that?" And I'm like, "Well, hold on. We're talking about the wrong thing here. Why is she 2 weeks into the program and having all these issues?"
Mhm.
Now, I'm not suggesting that your program's not good because she's coached hundreds and hundreds. Like she's got a beautiful, healthy business. And yes, this is a one-off thing, but it's like, well, let's take that serious. Why, after 2 weeks, did she determine that this was 100% not the program for her? And she's like, well, I don't really know. I just know that she wants to cancel. So I was just determining like what the best way to go about it was. And I was like, well, here's what I would do, right? Get on a call and just ask how you can be better. And I know that sucks. It hurts to do it as a business owner, especially if you've got a little bit of an ego. And I'm speaking for myself here, right?
Mhm.
I sometimes have a little bit of an ego. So if someone's like, your program sucks, for me to get on a call with someone and say, hey, I can appreciate the feedback, but I want to understand a little bit more because if you feel this and someone else might, and whether we continue working together or not, I want to make sure that if it's something that I can correct, that I correct it. Is that fair? And usually you can just see it visibly, just
Mhm.
disarm them. Like,
Yeah.
well,
I mean, then they're being seen and heard, and a lot of times people are
exactly.
just not accustomed to that at all in their life. And
Mhm.
so if anybody goes out of their way to listen to them, even if again, it might not end up being a good relationship, a business, it might not be a good service exchange for that person, but you've at
And
least made a different impression.
you're probably not. most people, if you can keep your cool, if you can ask good questions, right, keep your composure, most people are not going to still go on to Google and give you a terrible review, give you a 1-star review. Christy was the worst. She was this, she was that. She listened to all my concerns. She wrote them all down. She's the worst. I hate her. Like, no one's going to do that. So even if you don't save the sale, which ironically most times you do, right? Usually it's a few simple tweaks. But even if you don't, you at least saved a bad review. And yeah, I think a lot of people are reluctant to do that, but the feedback is everything. Good or bad, feedback is good, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think building it into each stage of your client journey potentially. So,
Yep.
if you're writing emails and nobody ever replies, that's feedback. If you're asking for replies and kind of looking at that again, detaching yourself from the emotions of it and saying, okay, well, what about these are not like inspiring a response? And maybe it's subject lines and nobody's opening it. Maybe it's your content and they're not getting the story, or maybe it's like the call to action and they're not knowing what to do. And so you're getting feedback in that exchange, or you're writing this, was this helpful? Like, is there something else you would like to see? You're asking for feedback before they've ever even become a client. And then you can build that in even when someone has become a client. So I used to wait tables and bartended for a while, back in the day. And I remember I liked doing it. Ironically enough, I know a lot of people hate it. I liked it. But there was this key time window where you put the food down on the people's table, and then you walk away, and you need to come back fairly quickly and before they even dive into their meal and say, is there anything else you need? Everybody good? Because they don't know what they need when they just get the food there. It takes them a second to like look around and be like, oh crap, I need ketchup, or like, where's the other thing? And if they don't have it, they're pissed.
Right.
Like, there's this window where like they want to enjoy this meal and you don't come back, it's right in front of them and they can't take advantage of it. And so you have to return and ask, is there something else you need? And that can be applied into a coaching business where in the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks before it's gotten to a place where it doesn't feel good, you come back and you're like, is everything going the way you anticipated? Does this, is there something else that we can do to help support you? Have you been able to access the resources? Did you download the app? Just a little touch. And they might be like, no, I'm good. Right. A lot of times at the table, they were good. I don't need anything else. I'm good. They just want you to leave them alone and let them do the thing. But you do have that opportunity to ask for feedback before it's messed up.
Yeah. Before like it really like sets in and then, yeah. Yeah, I like that. I like that reference a lot. One more thing on getting feedback too, not to make this like the entire theme of the episode, but I think it is crucial because it's helped me it's so much in my business, and I know it helps others in theirs. We had a client that had low show rates. And we've done everything. Like, we fixed the nurturing process. We found some issues there. We fixed it and it popped up, but didn't go up super far. Then we noticed that it was like a messaging thing. Then we noticed it was a timing thing, that they were getting too many things at once with other promos and then like the reminders. And we just kept fixing things and we got it better, but it still wasn't good. Finally, the last step, I was like, just message every single person that doesn't show up, that doesn't respond or reschedule, every person that just completely ghosts you. Message every single one and send them this message. And basically we crafted it. The essence of it is, hey, as a small business owner, I'm just looking for feedback. I noticed that you didn't make it to the call today. I didn't see a reason why. So I'm assuming that you didn't feel like it was a good fit, which is totally fine. But given that this is my livelihood and how I take care of my family, I just want some feedback so I can be better for the next person and not potentially rub them the wrong way. Right? Was there any reason that you specifically chose not to hop on this call? And it was that paraphrased, right? Overwhelming response. Tons immediately. People messaging back to rebook in like within seconds. They hadn't responded to anything. Within seconds, like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My kid went to, the urgent care. I had to do this. I had to do that. All the excuses came out, which is fine. But like, also there was some feedback too. Hey, it was a lot of messaging. I thought it was kind of automated, like this and that. And like, we can tweak that. But taking the approach of like, hey, help me help the next person, whether it's you or not. Like, I'm sorry, maybe it didn't work out, but I want to help the next. And that mentality is I don't know, people just resonate with it a lot more.
And it's not accusatory. It's not
Nope.
like
Nope.
it gives people a safe space to be like, well, you're right. I probably should have shown up. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
And also this is why I didn't.
exactly.
And you actually get some information out of that.
Yep,
Yeah, I really like that. I think that there should be follow up, and I'm guilty of maybe not following up with some of my no shows because I'm annoyed with them for not
exactly.
showing up.
And it's hard not to, because it's like, how do you not respect my time? Like, you take
Right.
it as like a personal slight, where instead of like, you can just, again, that objective, not to say that you should not have any emotions. You're a human, of course you're going to, but like in business, it really is just business. Like
It is,
the shit just happens.
yeah. I mean, like think about and people are people, and ultimately we should all ultimately think about the human behind things, but we don't. We move through the
Mhm,
world and we're like, that's a business, that's a this, that's that, and
mhm,
we're not thinking about it as people most of the time until all of a sudden you have that humanizing moment where
mhm.
someone's like, wait a minute, I'm a person. Like, why didn't you come?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's just like, it's a pattern interrupt. And
It
I
is.
think they look at you through a different light. And especially, don't, for those of you who are listening, don't abuse this, but like anything that says as a small business owner, oh my gosh. I mean, people use that all the time, do they not? Like, people
Yeah.
use the small business owner as like a marketing tool. They use it for politics if you're running for like local office in a small town. You know, I'm a small business owner, help the small business. You know, people have a certain soft spot for that, right?
Yeah. hmm
And so when you can use that and don't abuse it, okay, let me preface for the fifth time, don't abuse it. But if you can use that for feedback, people are generally going to respond in a better tone.
hmm Yeah, I think so. And again, it just allows you to make that like iteration. Well, hey, maybe 7 text message reminders was too many. Like,
Yeah,
let me,
right.
let me make 2 and see if that goes better, or change something about this email sequence, or maybe a qualifying question needs to be tweaked or something. You
Yeah.
can iterate, make it better.
And maybe it was a one-off.
hmm
Maybe you caught someone on a bad day. Like, we sent a pitch out to all I think I don't know if I told you this the other day when we first started chatting, but we told someone to have a good day and he responded with a voice message. He's like, "Hey, never in my life will I buy from you. Will I associate with you? There's nothing you could do to ever get me to buy from you." And I'm like, "Whoa, okay."
Like
It's like
they,
it's like things like that. You just have to,
yeah,
like, if it's a one-off thing, it's like, okay, it's probably not the message. The message has worked really well. I told him to
right,
have a good week and he lost his mind. He's probably dealing with some things beyond our capabilities. That's
yeah,
perfect. I'd rather him rule himself out
right,
than to deal with that in a different capacity. So don't, some things you just got to laugh off, but don't take every ounce of feedback as like, all right, scrap that whole message. It's done. That guy hated it.
hmm
Like Christy said, identify trends and then make decisions from there.
hmm yeah, yeah. It's great advice.
Yeah, fun stuff of owning a business. So,
hmm
getting
Yeah.
screamed at by random people.
You just never know. They might have a bad day, you know?
And if you can laugh it off, it's gonna help your longevity as a business owner. Because if you take every single, I don't want to say insult, but everything like that to heart, it's a short-lived career. I think the shelf life on business coaches is, or even just coaches in general, in like the online space, is fairly short because those things can stack up over time. So it's just managing the expectations in real time, I think, is important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Christy, so you told us how you got started in the online space. We went on a whole bunch of different
Mhm.
routes, which I think we provided a ton of good value here, in my opinion. Where do you see the industry going?
I think because money is tight for a lot of people, it's just reality
Yeah.
with the economy. People are going to be more um, particular about spending money on coaching. And
Mhm.
in a way, I feel like that's actually a good thing. I feel like it's time as an industry for us to level up together,
Mhm.
both in the quality of the service that we're providing, in the messages that we're putting out, the marketing messages that we're putting out. I
Mhm.
think we can also level up as professionals
Mhm.
in every way. And again, I think that's important because when everybody floods into the space, so in 2020, it's like, oh my God, we can't do it in person. Like I've always wanted to be an online coach. Now's the time I can be an online coach. Barrier to entry super low. People have the money to spend. So then they're like, let me hire you for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for whatever. And you're like, I can do it. Or you see other people doing it. And so you think that, but we're not heavily focused on delivering outcomes. We're not heavily focused on improving the client experience. We're just, how fast can I grow? Or even just like, brand growth or, financial growth. It's time to return to doing what most of us got into this space to do, which is to help people change their life through the vehicle of nutrition and fitness, and translating that from an in-person space where it's fairly obvious to an online space should be like an entrepreneur's dream, because we get to be creative. We get to touch people who live thousands of miles away, but we ultimately still need to deliver results.
Yeah.
And what I'm thinking is going to change in the industry as people become more specific around how they're spending their money, because there's less money to spend, is that the people who are getting results will stay. And the people who aren't, or the people who aren't focused on improving, because we all start at the beginning where we're learning, but if you're not focused on getting better, then I don't know that you'll be able to compete.
No, you won't.
And that's a good thing. And again, ultimately what it does is it has us all level up together, where the people who are in this, there's plenty of people to help. There's plenty of people willing to spend money. There's no shortage of that in this, even in the crap economy. There's still plenty for everyone. However, people are not dumb. And I also think that we need to level up our messaging. Like people are not sort of, I hate to say it because I remember that place where I was, right? And I was like willing to buy the Slim Fast, right? Like, could you have sold me $1,000 of Slim Fast if you had promised me 30 pounds of weight loss? Yeah, probably, right? But on the other hand, like what actually changed my life was someone not doing that. Someone who didn't baby me about my knee. Someone who did talk to me like an adult and say like, I need you to show up for yourself. I need you to come to this workout and do it, and not, and not quit after these reps. We need to finish them. I need you to not eat out so much. And it was that actually changed my life. And so although we do need to have catchy marketing hooks and content that's compelling, we should be the ones who are moving away from the BS and taking people to what they actually need. And I feel like, again, that's something that we can level up in the space and do better.
Of something that's on your mind in terms of like BS that you'd like to replace with something more quality.
Well, for example, people, it's very catchy right now to talk about mindset stuff. Everybody wants to talk about mindset. Like if, this is the 17 different ways you can improve your mindset. Guess what? People know their mindset sucks. They know they're supposed to go to the gym. They know they're supposed to eat better. They're just not doing it. And so that's not a solution. That's the kind of thing that I mean. So it's kind of just like a cop out to be, and I've done it too. So I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm saying we have to actually provide solutions even in our marketing. And I don't know that we're doing it. Instead, we're just kind of like illuminating the situation they already know that they're in. And so that's kind of what I mean.
I have a better idea of what you mean now. And like our push-pull process, like I talk about this all the time because this is how we. So you said basically that your coach didn't allow you to just accept the way things are, right? But there has to be like somewhat of an intrinsic motivation as well. It couldn't have been all him because he can scream in your face and he can do all the things. But if it's not intrinsic in some capacity, you're going to be like, fuck this guy, right? I'm not coming back tomorrow. I'll finish today, but I ain't coming back tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's where like our push-pull process, like when we're selling, the service, we like to push people away, not push them towards a decision, right? Towards our service, but like towards making a decision. That's it. Making a decision, whether it's with us, with anyone else, don't care. But a decision should be made. And some people make a decision to stay exactly where they are. That's okay, so long as you're consciously making that decision and you're informed in that decision, right?
Yeah.
Most times, though, when you can push people with these subtle little pushes, right, creating that space, it makes people want to fight to stay on the call. It makes people want to fight to actually like stand up for themselves, stand up for something that they actually want. And that's what gets them to take that step, right?
Mhm.
Where I see a lot of fitness coaches go wrong, and I thought you might have been alluding to this a moment ago. Maybe you weren't, but it's like everybody wants their process to be the easiest, right? Busy moms lose weight without ever working out or counting a macro in your
Exactly.
life.
People are not stupid. They know that
Yeah.
that's not real. And so we're pandering to them also and promising something that's not going to have them proactively take ownership over their life.
Yes. So while some of it is fine, right? Like some of it I get, like, hey, lose weight without giving up, weekends with the
Sure.
girls. Okay, I get that. That's from a macro standpoint, that's fair within reason. But I think a lot of people on their sales calls and in their sales process and marketing, they're not letting people know, they're not being transparent that there is work that has to be done,
Yeah.
right? They think they're going to come in and like once they buy it, they're like, "Oh, where's my weight loss?" It's like, "Well, dude, you
Mhm.
haven't checked in for 3 weeks."
Yeah.
Right?
And and again, that is the art of coaching.
Mhm.
And we all have to level up as coaches. Not only do we have to help people by knowing, okay, here's the plan to lose weight or here's the plan to build muscle or whatever, but the
Mhm.
art of coaching is also that push pull
Mhm.
of here's this, I'm going to give you a little bit of a nudge and then now
Mhm.
what's your turn?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
And then let's go again. You're a little bit stuck. Here's your nudge.
Yep,
Okay, now you do it. Because that's how someone changes their life because they build confidence and
exactly.
momentum in themselves.
And they take those small actions. You encourage them, you're like, "All right, a little bit more." Let's
Right.
kick it back to, this weekend. Brooke and I went skiing. Brooke has been skiing, this is her 2nd year, okay?
Mhm.
She did a lot better than I did, my first year. We'll preface with that, but, like, her thing was, like, she goes down the blues, but she goes down the blues the exact same way as the greens. Very slow, big
Mhm.
S's, nice and chill, and so it's, like, pushing a little bit. It's like, "Dude, you crushed that run. Let's see it a little bit faster now. Now plant a little bit harder, cut a little bit," you know what I mean? And so it's, like, just building and building and building, and it's, like, those little micro wins, when they stack up, like, people actually want to do more. And
Mhm.
so fitness is no different, but if we're not being transparent, like, you're not gonna have to do anything. It's gonna be so easy. You can keep all your same shitty habits, and we're gonna teach you how to lose weight with my blank method. It's like,
Mhm.
unlikely.
Yeah, that's taking the messages of the stuff and that's exactly what I meant. It's like the Slim Fast promise
Mhm,
and slapping it like slapping that sticker on a real program and pretending that that's going to work. Like you're
mhm.
selling them the quick fix, but you really want them to do the work and then you wonder why they're not doing the work.
Yeah. We've done that. I mean, we've seen it as business coaching. Like in
Mhm.
business coaching, now it hasn't been often, right? Because we have so many moments throughout the sales process where we're like, "Hey, by the way, I want you to know, Christy, like if we take this step, everything goes to shit. Everything, this whole plan that I just built out, everything is pointless the moment that you stop showing up for yourself, right?" So,
Mhm.
do we have like a verbal agreement, a verbal handshake here that you're going to put in the work? Because I can give everything to you, but nothing, and I'm telling you, nothing will happen until you implement because I'm not
Mhm.
going to do it for you.
Yeah.
Like we've added so many moments in our sales conversations from like a B2B standpoint where now our clients are coming in and they're crushing it, right?
Mhm.
But we weren't doing it quite as much, a little while ago. And we did have a few clients that kind of came in and they're, just kind of sitting on their hands. They're like, "Where's my money?"
Right.
Wait a minute.
I paid you money. Where's my money?
Exactly. So
Mhm.
fitness coaching is no different though. If you sell them this super easy method, you're going to find that they sit on their hands more often than not.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And it's in business as you're building your business, that is true at every level from the
Mhm.
very first beginning of like getting your first couple of clients to all the way up when you're trying to scale. Like this is hard work.
Oh yeah. Yeah. A lot of coaches won't say that.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scale to $1 million a month, grow the biggest team in the world, make a tons of money, live on the beach, and work 3 hours a week. They'll sell
Yeah.
you all these crazy dreams, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because then they come to us afterwards and they're like, didn't work. Like, yeah, no shit.
Yeah, and it's also a little bit of like the chase game of,
Mhm.
okay, well, I'm in the online space. Like I need to scale to, $10,000 a month. Well, do you? Like really? Like let's take a look at that. What is it that you got in this to do? So let's work in reverse.
Mhm.
And if what you got in this to do is to deliver results to people with a certain coaching program and to have something like financial freedom, time freedom, let's define what those are.
Mhm.
Financial freedom, time freedom, very specifically, and let's solve for that.
Mhm.
Because maybe it's a $10,000 a month business, maybe it's more than that, maybe it's less than that, but you
Mhm.
don't have any idea. We're just chasing this thing because all of these people out there say that you're supposed to. And then once they get there, they're like, well, now it's time to scale. I'm supposed to hire 5 coaches and scale this business so that I
Mhm.
can have 100, 200, 300 clients. And I'm like, do you? Is that really what you want? Do you want to have a team of 10? Do you know what that's like? Because I do.
Mhm.
Maybe that's not the business that you actually want. Or
Mhm.
is it the impact scale? Because maybe that does allow you to touch more people, but does it make you more profit? You don't know because you haven't done the numbers. And
Right.
so
Eh,
it's
well,
this
exactly.
chase, right? Like you might be serving 400 clients and still taking home $1,000 a month, right?
I've
Because
seen it.
your expenses are so high.
I've seen it. I've seen it over and
Mhm.
over where coaches will, I mean, they have these large rosters, they have the ACs, they have the assistants and the marketing and the ads, and they have the full team. And from the outset, it's like, wow, they crush it. And then you see them go under and you're like, what the hell? What happened? Right. And usually
Mhm.
they're saying something like, "Oh, I just didn't want to run a business anymore." It's like, well, is that why?
Mhm.
It just makes you kind of question it. And I've seen the back end of so many businesses. There's a sweet spot. Okay. I heard a podcast the other day from a good buddy who's also in the business coaching space. I don't think it was a slight towards me, but we're going to talk about it. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
Because we preach the sustainable growth model. What the sustainable growth model stands for, I think people get it misconstrued. A lot of people, not a lot, but a few people have asked, well, I want to scale a business. I do want to make a lot of money. And it sounds like I wouldn't do that on your model. Not the case. We have coaches making, anywhere from two to six, $700,000 a year top line revenue, but their bottom line is a lot closer to that top line than it would be if they didn't scale with intention, right? With the systems that we have. But what I see so often, and what this gentleman said on the podcast was basically like, well, would you rather have a big piece of a small pie and have high profit margins, or have a small piece of a big pie, have a multi-million-dollar company with tons of coaches? And the person on his podcast was like, I want the small pie, millions of dollars. And it's like, well, let's break that down. Okay.
Mhm.
Because a lot of people think that just by making 7 figures that you're rich. Not the case. Not the case at all. Right. I tell so many people this. We made less top line this year than we did last year, but I'm taking home over $100,000 more this year. That's not a flex, Christy. Like that's
Mhm.
me
Right.
just like telling, taking over $100,000 more this year than I did last year, and we made significantly less last year, or significantly more.
Mhm.
The model makes you more profitable. I don't have to flex a top line.
And what if instead of $100,000 more, you were like, I have every Tuesday, Thursday to go do whatever I want. That's what I did this
Imagine.
year. And I took home enough that I had the financial freedom that I want, but I got myself time this year.
Exactly.
It's
And my
what do you
coaching
want?
was improved. I
Right.
gave back to my clients. They're getting better results. My ACs are happy. My team is happy. They're making money. I'm making money. Like the impact isn't as wide, but it's more of an impact, right?
Yeah. And listen, I've learned, I mean, I'm still learning all of this, but I've made the mistakes of scaling things fast,
Mhm.
thinking that that was the ultimate. I have hired too quickly and
Mhm.
inflated a team. I have inflated my expenses and
Yeah.
overspent and seen the consequences of that. And I'll say the one thing that's kind of allowed me to stay in the game
Mhm.
is the what we can return to in the beginning. Although I have learned, because I don't have a business degree, I've never had a business. There's not an entrepreneur who taught me how any. I've learned a lot of this the hard way. And again, through
Mhm.
some good mentors, probably saved me some time, but we're
For
all
sure.
learning. I think that my commitment to delivering results
Yeah.
and to people has allowed me to stay in the game despite,
Mhm.
some wrong turns,
Mhm.
and also just not quitting
That's a hell of a
because
message.
because you could also just quit,
Good.
and I'm not. And so I think that commitment to what I set out to do will continue to allow me to learn and iterate. And, you know, business wise, there are positives to having those different things: time freedom, money freedom, a team, an impact. But nobody can decide what it is for you. You have to figure out what you want.
Yeah.
And then solve for that.
Exactly. And anything beyond that is just, that's great. Like, and you can choose by the year. Like, this is a year where Brooke and I have decided, hey, we're going to go really hard this year, right? One, because I'm confident in the program and I spent the last year rebuilding and making it as good as we possibly can. But two, now we have a scalable model. We've changed some things on the back end. I'm like, hey, let's go hard this year. And you're allowed to choose. Let's say, Christy, you want to buy a house or a new car, or you have this dream thing, this dream trip in Europe that you want to do, something, right? You can go harder and scale out, so long as, like, and have that as your goal, so long as your delivery doesn't dip, right? I have no issues with that. So, the big piece, the small piece of whatever size pie, I think there's a balance, right? If we go back to nutrition, I'm sure there's a reference there that we could have.
Yeah.
But like, there's a balance where your profit is good and your stress is moderate, and you're working enough hours to where you can still enjoy some things in your life. But scaling just to scale, I've seen it, I've done it. It sucks.
Yeah. And again, just the reality check of there's a certain amount of take some inspiration from the others in the space, and then put some blinders on and learn from somebody who's actually done what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point there, because there's a lot of people getting into the coaching space that haven't actually done it. So Christy, this was fun. I had a blast. Thanks for letting me pick your brain. Appreciate all the insight there. Where can people find you?
So best way would be on Instagram at Christy May Campbell.
Okay.
And so that's going to be the easiest way to connect with me. I do have a podcast called Fit Me Coffee Talk. It's short form, 10 to 15 minute episodes that I do by myself typically. And it's usually really helpful stuff. So even if it's not like something that you're going to use, maybe you can use it with your clients if you're a fitness coach. And then can I explain a little bit about Coaching Biz Manager?
Absolutely, you can.
So about a year ago, I was probably on like 9 different platforms, maybe a year and a half ago. I was on Kajabi, I had Typeform, I had ActiveCampaign, I had everything, Google Sheets, all of this stuff. I was piecemealing it all together with Zapier, and a good friend of mine introduced me to a software that basically combined it all into one. Sure. And so he'd been using it for a while. We started using it together, and we realized, okay, software's cool, great. You can go out there and find some all-in-one softwares. Awesome. But what we really realized is that we could provide a service to coaches who were trying to build their online business and didn't have the tools, but ultimately didn't know how to do, what we've spent years learning. And so we put together a service called Coaching Biz Manager. And yes, we do give you the software. So you can email, you can build your courses, you can do all of your sales pipelines, all that cool stuff. But really what we do is we help you. I mean, truly, it's the application. Like I said, you can have all the tools, just like the ones I was talking about before. Go figure it out. But it's how you use them that actually matter. Right. And so we're really focused on the basics, to be honest. We help you build out, you're starting to send regular emails, building that email nurture, understanding your client journey from the start to finish. And so that you have something low ticket that you can offer and a page that represents you and your brand for them to opt in on. And then you can, do good nurture that leads them to a sales call, where they can use your push-pull, method, or learn from you and how to do this. And so ultimately we're helping coaches build the foundation. Absolutely. And so these aren't like crazy, complicated strategies. These are the basics that you can take and run with and do whatever you want. And so this coaching service it's not a coaching service. It's software, but you're going to learn from 2 people who have done what you want to do and are going to help you do it. And ultimately that's what Coaching Biz Manager is. And so if you're interested in it, you can go to coachingbizmanager.com. We do one-on-one onboardings. And so in that onboarding process, if you say you heard us on this podcast, then we'll give you 30 days complimentary, so you can try it out, get the service, see if it's a good fit. If it's not, cool, take what you learn and run with it. If it is, stick around. It's $197 a month. It's so much less than I spent on all of the nonsense in the past. So
I can relate to that. You hear that, guys? I got you guys 30 days for free. I got you guys the hookup. So mention the FSA podcast if that's where you came from. Christy, this was an absolute blast. I'm going to finish with one question, okay?
Sure. Yeah.
If you could work out with one celebrity, get one savage leg day, bicep, whatever it is, whatever your lift of choice is with one celebrity, who is it?
I know this sounds so dumb, but it would definitely be The Rock.
Yeah. Damn it. That was mine.
Really? I don't know why, because he just seems so friendly, and also, I mean, obviously a gangster in the gym. So I would totally want to work out with him.
I know. I just want him to just call me out. That's what I need. It's like if he sees me just kind of like lollygagging, just call me a pussy and, get me back on it, right?
Yes, he's like the perfect balance of like, it's going to be fun, but you're also going to get your ass kicked. Like that's what I want to work out with.
I need that. Yep, exactly. Love that. Christy, this was a pleasure, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
You too. Take care.
All right.